man, I've already forgotten the answers to these two questions, and I didn't think to ask them in the pre-interview. So, how long have you been married?
I've been married 16 years.
Got it. And how long have you been sober?
5.
Okay. Here's why I wanted to get those numbers in. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Thanks for coming in.
No problem.
Always happy to see you. I've known you going on 10 years. And so the reason I asked about the math, let's look at the numbers, is because I saw what I think of as the beginning of your story. And now I'm seeing the pig. Kate runs a little diamond of a store here in the Plaza Shopping District of Santa Fe. It's kind of like Larchmont in Hollywood, someplace like that. Kind of famous place people love to go. Window shop and buy stuff. It's great. And her place is great. And I went in there recently. I hadn't bumped into her in ages. And she pretty much grabbed me and said, I got my 5-year chip and we're going on a 16th blah, blah, blah for the wedding. And I'm thinking to myself, boy, howdy, is that different from the Kate that I met 10 years ago who was hanging on to a slippery rope and had a great life, and it was going in the shitter because of goddamned addiction. I hate addiction so much because when that thing is awake, there's nothing for it. Both of our lives have been saved. Both of us are clean and sober. But when the monster's awake, it's a bitch. So I knew you 10 years ago when you couldn't stay sober, and I know you now when you're doing cartwheels over a 5-year chip and your marriage is just great. What happened in between?
Well, I've clearly always been an addict alcoholic. I always joke now that I've been sober the longest since elementary school. So that's an interesting thing.
Yep, me too.
You know, I just always drank a lot, and I used a lot of drugs, mostly prescription drugs.
Where were you?
I was in Denver. I was raised in the Denver metro area, and I would steal from parents. I'd steal from my in-laws.
Right.
I'd steal from anybody. Didn't really matter where I got the pills from, but I always thought they were the issue, and I never owned up to the alcohol issue until 6 years ago. I never thought the alcohol was the issue. I just drank, like 10 drinks a day. It was not a problem. Not a problem at all. So I ended up going, I got pregnant, which we'd been trying for almost a decade. I got pregnant, and then I had a miscarriage, and I almost died. That was the first moment in my life where I actually realized that I wanted to live. Like, I never cared about myself.
Okay.
People were always like, you're very brave. And I was like, well, mostly I don't care about myself, so I'll go do anything.
Explain that sentence a little. You were brave or reckless about?
I wasn't necessarily reckless, but I would say yes to a lot of things. Like, I worked down in Antarctica at McMurdo Station. And,
well, who hasn't?
Yeah, right. And so I was like, people were like, oh, you're so brave that you went and did that. And I was like, well, I just said yes because what's the worst thing that could happen, And
doing what?
Cooking.
Okay.
Yeah, I was cooking.
All right.
So party, you want to talk about partying? Oh my God, that's a whole nother story. But that place was nuts. So
it literally says in the big book, if you think that sending somebody off to the, what does they say, the Greenland ice cap to keep them sober is going to work, they'll get their hands on something. So Antarctica.
Seriously, it's a party scene. So people were like, you're so brave. And I was mostly like, well, I don't give a shit about myself, so it doesn't really matter what I do. The fact that I did almost die made me realize I didn't want to die.
Of what? What do you mean?
That miscarriage.
Gotcha.
So I crawled in a bottle after that and just gave up. And 6 months later, I was standing in my bedroom with a knife at my wrist. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? Like, 6 months ago, I was praying not to die. I was begging for my life. And now I want to die? Like, what just happened? And I didn't give a shit if my husband was going to leave me, if I was going to lose my business, if I was going to lose my house. I didn't care.
That's right.
And, but then all of a sudden I was going to die. And that's when I cared. If I hadn't almost died in that horrible, traumatic thing, I wouldn't have known I wanted to live. I never would have gotten help. So silver linings.
I've got this thing about zebras. I feel like us alcoholics and addicts are zebras. Totally. And we kind of look like horses, and we can kind of hang out with horses. We ain't horses. And so this is a perfect example of that, what you just laid out. And that is that addicts don't respond well to the threat of negative consequences.
Nope.
the best one I ever heard was a guy was being dragged against his preferences to couples counseling. And the counselor said to the husband, the guy I knew, if you keep drinking, I'm not going to have you as a client. He was like, yeah, got a deal, pal. Put her there. Or if you keep drinking, you're going to lose your job at the factory. Wah. If you keep drinking, your wife's going to quit talking to you. I can deal with that. So all the stuff that you would think
would motivate you.
Yeah, has some leverage with a normal goddamn human being. With us, either we take it the other way, like, fine. You think I want to come working at a factory 6 a.m? I don't. Not really thinking to the end of the story.
Totally.
Or in my case, things that I had worked my whole life for that meant the world to me got ripped away from me because I'd just rather stay high. Or rather, I don't know if that's the word, but it's like breathing air, eating food. It's to somebody who's never been addicted. I think you could talk all day. It won't make sense. You and I have been addicted, and we got out. Here we are.
Yeah.
So it was a close call with suicide. That was your.
Yeah, and so I immediately put down the knife and I started calling rehabs. Would never, ever have worked for me for somebody else to send me to rehab, like too stubborn. Like I had to do it for myself. So I got rejected by a rehab. That was a fun experience. They were like, you have too many substances in you. You're too fucked up for us to help. Oh, cool. That's a great beginning to this journey. Awesome. So I ended up calling around some more and I found another place. I actually went here in town to Life Healing Center for 5 weeks and it was intense. And about 2 weeks in, I was finally not shaking anymore. I almost died. I almost had a heart attack detoxing. Which
was your biggest deal alcohol?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I definitely was taking some benzos and stuff too, but I was drinking at minimum a quart of vodka a day to function. I wasn't even getting drunk. It was just not to shake and just to function.
How long ago was this period we're talking about?
6, 7 years ago.
Okay, because I knew you then.
Mm-hmm.
You hired my then teenage son on his first real job, and he loved it, loved the job, loved working for you. And I can cut this out if you want, because I never told you this. But my son told me that, and he was green as the grass. He didn't know anything about the business. Mm-hmm. And he said that there was part of it that involved packaging
extracts.
Vanilla. Oh, you're ahead of me. And he thought that was the kind of thing that if you spilled it, you're out $500. So he didn't want to do that. And he immediately got roped into doing that part of the job. And the whispers was because the owner is not allowed near the extract.
Yep. I had to actually, when I after I went to rehab and I got out, I ordered cages to put the bulk extracts in, and I did also
like an evidence locker in a police station.
Yeah.
Holy for vanilla extract.
Yeah, and also like boxes that were locked for the pre-bottled stuff, and I didn't have the codes to it, and they did a count of the extracts every morning.
Holy
and every
shit!
evening.
Well, I remember when I was about 12, already on my way to this life. My older brother was rummaging through some stuff and he goes, "Oh, orange extract. You can get drunk on that stuff." And he set it beside him. I gulped it down. I think I vomited all the way down my parents' hallway because it was like, I don't know, getting gut shot. It was rough.
But yeah, it was my way to try to help myself be accountable. It still took me a bunch of relapses to finally be like, oh, okay, this is
It's embarrassing too. You're a pro.
So embarrassing.
You're a substantial person and a pro, and you were the store owner and all that goes with that. Mm-hmm. Wow.
It was. I know it's embarrassing. It's super embarrassing.
Well, it's a lot of things. It's admirable that you took action, but the reality of it, locking vanilla extract, because you still had to go into the gas station on the way home every day and the grocery store twice a week. So you're going to be surrounded by liquor for sale everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. But there you were having to.
But it was there. Mm-hmm. It was right in front of me every day. Okay. And I was like the alcoholic. So like I would drink
physical,
anything.
Very physical alcoholic.
Very physical. Yeah. I still think about alcohol every single day.
Is that right? Okay.
I still do. And but I wanted to tell you my rock story. So when I was in rehab, about 2 weeks in, I finally stopped shaking. I was like, I don't think I can do this. It's too hard. Like, I don't think I can do this. I had some pretty bad things happen to me when I was a kid. So I really needed this rehab facility focused mostly on mental health, trauma, and addiction. And so I'm bipolar. I am PTSD riddled, and I'm beautifully fucked up in my own wonderful way. I was just like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And this guy who I was talking to, he was like, oh my God, look. And he pointed over, and there's a painted rock, and I'm not shitting you. And it said, "You got this, Kate."
Pretty specific.
Uh-huh. And I just looked at that, and I was like, there's no clearer sign than from the universe that, I mean, it still gives me goosebumps. It was weird.
I'm a little feathers in the back of my neck are going up. That's kind of weird.
And so I stayed. And even though once I got out of rehab, I relapsed a bunch of times. But after about a year or 9 months, probably after rehab was my last drink. So April 24th, 2018.
What happened?
I had been drinking at my shop.
Got it.
But I was drinking at my shop, and my husband was working with me at the time, and he, of course, knew I was in a relapse, but, I thought I was hiding it. And then he finally, confronted me, and he was like, listen, we just can't do this. Like, I'm done. I want a divorce, period. I can't do this anymore. You're a fucking child. And I, of course, was like, pointing fingers and yelling.
Boy, do I know.
Got a hotel room, and the next morning I woke up and I literally sat up and I was like, oh my God, I'm a child. That really hit home. And I was like, I've always been very good in my professional life, but my personal life, I basically stopped growing emotionally at age 7.
And your husband's a good dude, and he loves you, and you love him.
Yeah.
But there comes, there are limits.
Yeah. So he ended up leaving for 5 months, and we had a trial separation, and he talked about how he heard my language change. So through my sobriety.
As you got better?
As I got further into sobriety.
That's deep.
Took me about 6 months. He left about 3 months into me being sober, and then he was gone through month 9, 8 or 9.
I see.
And he said that he heard me, I never said I love you. I never reached out to him. I let him do everything. I finally had to say, I need you to, it was only going to be 3 months. I was like, I need you to stay away longer. I'm doing a really good job, but I really need more time.
Wow.
He said he knew then that things were really changing. I remember the first day while he was gone that I woke up and I wasn't disappointed that I woke up. Because my first 6 months of recovery, I cried at every meeting. I went to 5 to 7 meetings a week. I cried at every meeting.
I think I knew you then.
Yep.
I think I knew this time, and I think that is part of why when I reconnected with you here a month or two ago, and you said that you and your husband were, you said you had some big celebration coming up. Mm-hmm. I was thinking to myself, didn't they bust up? I think they were quits. And you were so happy about getting a 5-year chip, not a 30-day chip, which is also gigantic.
Huge.
Gigantic. I get it. But 5 years is, there's something that happens with many recovering addicts and alcoholics at around 5 years that the heat's off. We get driven in, most of us, by job stuff, legal stuff, marriage stuff, health stuff. And if you start behaving yourself and showing up to work on time and paying your bills on time and not acting like a fool, a lot of the heat gets turned down. And then you're 5 years in and you're like, even if you've decided that liquor is off the menu and drugs, it seems to me that many people, they just go away. I don't know where they go, but there's you don't see them around anymore. And my suspicion is they go, do I really want to live according to these principles and do all this work? And every time I lie, put it straight. Every time I get funny with money, put it straight. Do I have to do all of that? Can't I just not drink? And I don't know, but there is an attrition around the 5-year mark where people that you see at meetings, you don't see at meetings anymore. And you don't really get to hear the other end of the story unless they come back and grab a newcomer chip. Mm-hmm. And, I've been doing this a long, long time. And I have come to the observation that rarer than a 50-year recovery chip is a second 10-year chip. If somebody gets 10 years and relapses, they go to fucking pieces. They don't just get drunk or go back to having a glass of wine with dinner. They go to pieces. Mm-hmm. And if after months or years they go, yeah, it was better being sober. I really do have this thing. I really can't run the show. And they come back and make it stick permanently and make it all the way to 10 years or more. That's, man, when somebody says in a meeting, this is my second 10-year chip, I go hug them after the meeting and say, you're my new hero.
Me too. Or the people who go out with like 30 years and then they come back and they're like, I had 30 years and then I went out and now I'm coming back. I'm just like, you're my hero. You are so my hero.
Kate, let me circle back to, I was a super daily everything and I was addicted to a lot of things. I stayed high for decades and I was dragged kicking and screaming. Unlike you waiting to make the call myself, I don't know if I ever would have. Was dragged into a hospital at age 32. One and done. I've been sober ever since. 30 years now. All I can say is I'll swear on the life of my kids that I've never been tempted to get high again. I was so happy to be released from this slavery and this agony that it was like being let out of prison and me going, you know what? Prison wasn't so bad. I like that. So that's what it's been like for me. It is not like that for everybody. I definitely know people that say, look, it crosses my mind all the damn time. I love it. Maybe part of it is I never really loved it. We live in Santa Fe where people have wine collections and scotch collections. I was drinking Red Coleman's vodka out of a plastic bottle, and if I could have squirted it past my tonsils, I just wanted to be drunk. Totally. I didn't care about any of those niceties. Some of us are, it never crosses our mind, and some of us think about it a whole lot, but all of us are in the same meeting rooms together, going, what do I do about my job? What do I do about my wife? What do I do about my diagnosis from the doc? You know, it's facing life on life's terms with the brain we've got. We got that zebra brain.
Totally.
That never seems to go away in my observation. What was the longest you put together before your stint in your Kate Rock rehab?
Oh, I never.
I see.
I mean, my last few years of drinking, even before the miscarriage, I drank all day, every day, just constantly. And I remember my very first drink in elementary school, and I was just like, this is magic. And then I remember my first cigarette, and I was like, this is magic. I did just quit smoking, too, which was super exciting.
Huge.
And then,
good decision.
But yeah, I drank all the time. And, I used to drink nicer stuff. And then it got less nice and less nice. And then it was finally like, how can I not strip my wallet and still get drunk? No, I was bad. And I think about alcohol every single day.
Okay.
I call it my little 8-year-old alcoholic in my head who's constantly there. Like, my husband does drink beer. And so that's the only thing that I'm okay having around.
Okay.
And if there's an open can, I'm pretty insistent he keeps it with him. But if it's around and I see it, that 8-year-old starts talking and is like, it's been 5 years. Maybe you're not an alcoholic, or maybe you got this. And I laugh at that 8-year-old. I am utterly terrified of alcohol. Like, it is the thing I am the most scared of in this world. And so it's weird to have that dichotomous part of myself where part of me is like, I want, and the other part of me is like, no, get away from me. So, but I think about it all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean I want it, but I think about it a lot.
Well, our brains aren't normal.
No, they aren't.
That's the only answer I have for you there is the jaywalker. Somebody who really has they sure love to jaywalk, and once in a while their hand gets clipped or their shoe gets run over, and the next thing they've got a traction, and the next thing they know, the family's left them, and you're nuts, and you're laying in bed going, I could do it one more time. What the hell?
But my life is so different now, though. Like, my family, I'm the dependable one.
Thank you.
Which is amazing and weird. And I'm the emotionally mature one. And I am not the one that the family is calling each other about. And I go help the family. And they are all needing help. And I'm the one who helps. It's weird.
You're reading my mail, Kate. I never get over the miracle of, I call it the midnight call. that these days I receive the midnight call. Dude, you've been sober a long time, and we're worried about Larry, and he's drunk all the fucking time. What should he do? And not that I have the answers, but I get the call. Mm-hmm. And I assure you, in 1991, 1992, my friends were lighting up the phone lines late at night going, this idiot, we love him, but enough's enough.
Yep.
And pretty soon they don't even love you that much.
No.
You're not that lovable, or you're not around. I'm Irish, so we're big on the Irish. Where'd Sherm go? I thought he went to the bathroom. As 2 hours ago, he's gone. I've had car keys in my pocket since I'm 15. I will tip the fuck out of a deal I don't want to be there for. Then and now.
That's fantastic.
That has not changed. So apart from being dependable, which is not where you came from, does anything else come to mind of, look at me, how'd we get here in terms of recovery?
It seems like a miracle. Like 5 days seemed impossible.
Sure. 15
and it was
minutes.
impossible.
15 minutes, I couldn't leave that shit alone.
I know. And so now it's whenever something bad happens, it's not my first thought. When I think about alcohol, it's normally when things are good. Which the fact that I think about it all the time means most of my life is really good now. It's hard. Life is hard. I have a lot of really hard things going on, but I have this like underlying level of gratitude and just joy that I've never had before, and hope. I didn't know what hope was. And for years, people, whenever they would ask me, like, if you could do anything, what would you do? For years, it was laugh. I just wanted to laugh, and I couldn't laugh, and because I just was in so much pain all the time. So I remember my first sober laugh, and it was life-changing. It was beautiful, and I didn't know I could still do that. You know, my marriage is incredible. This man, I've been with this man since I was 20 years old, so we've been together 18 years. He's the love of my life. He always has been, and he just says to me, he says, I knew this person was in there. I knew that this person was in there. You just were stuck due to trauma, due to addiction. He was like, you were just trapped. And he said it was the hardest thing for him was watching me fight myself constantly. And I don't do that anymore. I don't fight myself. I'm very accepting. I had long haul COVID for 2 years, and I was able to sit there because I couldn't move for almost 2 years.
Wow.
But it really galvanized me and my recovery because I had to sit there. I had to stay present. I had to work on gratitude. I had to really fortify myself, and I got through it without much, pain. Like I could handle it emotionally.
Yes. There's something about being in recovery that makes us great patients for doctors and stuff, not patients with a T, that will sit still for procedures and kidney dialysis and that sort of thing without being a dick about it.
And that's a smile on our face.
Yeah. Honestly, especially haven't had a drink in a billion years. It's legal and most people drink. So most people in the world could care less if I have a little something with dinner. You would care. My wife would care. My sponsor would care, but it's in the world, it's nothing. To go out and have a little hitcherino. But what people do care about is all that other stuff. Are you honest? Are you reliable? And I grew up with actually a good example of that. My dad was I like to say what he told you on Wednesday was still the story on Thursday. He was as reliable as a rock.
Man, it is something to be a reliable human.
Yeah.
A consistent human being.
And that it somehow, osmosis or something, I had a conscience and a desire to be a straight shooter, couldn't do it because I had to stay high all the time. And in my situation and with my thinking, that required a lot of, sneaky and shameful and tipping away and, spending money on stuff I shouldn't have and not showing up for things I should have and being high all the time. My old man got up in the morning, said his prayers, went to work, took care of his wife and kids, came home, watched Gunsmoke, and went to fucking sleep.
Yeah.
And I was on a different program in my 20s.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Me too.
And so now I took a picture of our backyard the other day, and we've got a ping pong table and a little shade because it's sunny where we live, and a trampoline and a little fire pit from Costco. And I went, we are officially Squares from Squaresville.
Totally.
It's like this is cooler than it looks, y'all. I swear. I know.
I garden. I feed the wild birds. I have a ton of animals. I have a ton of aquariums. The one thing that I always joke with people about, I'm like, the wonderful thing about being an addict is that I get really good at my hobbies. Really good at my hobbies. So I have like gorgeous aquariums. I have spoiled rotten chickens and ducks. I have a beautiful garden. I feed the birds. I cross stitch. I'm like a 90-year-old woman, and I love it. And I think in the beginning of getting sober, I used to think briefly about the things I couldn't do anymore. And I was like 10 months sober and I went to a bachelorette party. That was not wise. But I learned that it wasn't wise, and then I didn't do it again. That'll
be a part 2. We'll just Kate at the bachelor Chippendales, if that's still a thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's, this is where people who don't understand recovery are switching off the podcast, because I get it. That one day it's Las Vegas and other people's money and chasing women, and then you get sober and you're like, okay, Kate, I can tell you that I just got a book of Junior Jumble, and I'm sitting down with my 9-year-old stepson playing Junior Jumble, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. That is a hard sell to somebody who hasn't been on both sides of the line.
Well, and I always say, like, it's because I was a little worried I would be boring if I got sober. And then I was like, well, it's not the alcohol that makes alcoholics interesting.
Boy, is that ever true. Mm-hmm. I hated him then. I hate him now. Somebody's in my ear going, you're not listening to me. You're not listening. I swear to God, I didn't like it when I was one of them.
I know. Me too.
And now all you care about is, come on, The Cure.
Oh my God, The Cure. So much. Like, again, I felt like a deadhead. I saw them 2 weeks within 2 weeks. I saw them in Albuquerque and I saw them in Denver. But I've been doing caregiving up in Denver for my sister and my father. And, that's hard work. But I can do it now, which is amazing. And so it was so interesting to me because the tickets fell into my lap both times. And and it was kind of like, oh, thank you, universe. Like, I feel like I'm getting some payback for all the hard work I've done and things I've been through. And my friend was like, you look so healthy. And I was like, it's because I got a double dose of The Cure. That's why. Okay.
Well, you wouldn't know it to look at me now, but I saw a few Grateful Dead shows when they were really the Grateful Dead.
Oh, I believe it.
Now I have to go home and, keep my homeowners association squared away. Love you, Kate. Congratulations. Mazel tov on everything.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing the show.